Welcome to News from Down Home, where I talk about news from Princess Anne, Somerset County, Maryland, where I spent my young childhood. Now, my family had moved there in 1903 from Western Pennsylvania, but our roots are deep there now, and we have lots of family there. And I consider it my hometown because I spent my young childhood there. It was a great time for me, wandering the fields and streams of Somerset County on our 30-acre farm. My dad called the Greenbrier, had him sign made and everything. Then I had a three-legged German Shepherd dog who was injured on that very farm in a farm accident, which often happens, unfortunately. But named Rennie, Ren 1010 from the TV series. And we wandered around. He was my best friend. And I had some great years there. And then we moved away at the age of 13 from my father's job. So I want to talk about some events or some interesting things, I think, from the Marylander and Herald, which was the paper of record there until the 1980s, or at least as far as I was concerned, it was the paper of record. That's what we read. So in July 25th, 1916, it talks about typhoid fever. Now, it's something that we don't normally hear about today. It's not an issue in our current time for us here in America, but they titled this headline, Typhoid, the Result of Filth. And Dr. C.E. Collins of Crisfield, County Health Officer, he spoke of cases of typhoid fever which have been recently had throughout the county, and that he said the disease was one of filth, and the chief weapon was just to prevent the disease is cleanliness. Sanitary toilets should be installed. Many people didn't have indoor plumbing, didn't have indoor toilets. An outhouse. All waste and vegetable and animal matter should be buried. That things were left out, and flies should be kept out of the house. Flies would come through the window. Don't eat pies, cakes, and other confections would engrossed, exposed to dust and flies. Somebody puts a pie on the windowsill to cool down, and it's exposed to the elements and flies and get in there. All vegetables and fruits which have been exposed to dust and flies should either be cooked or treated with a solution of calcium hydrochloride. There's only one entrance into the body for typhoid germs, and that is the mouth. So you can see how important it is to get all liquids and foodstuffs which you swallow. And it's best to boil all drinking water. These wells weren't that deep. I'm telling you, they weren't that deep. Many of them were hand dug. So you know, and you have this big this well housing where you go and you dip the bucket in the water. You're talking about our ancestors had some vile, and this was an improvement over what went on before. So I remember reading about how you could walk into most towns, and in the center of town there would be a fountain, and the fountain would have a cup hanging by it, and you would drink out of a cup that many people drank out of before, and disease was spread. It was terrible. So I just thought this was interesting that in 1916, which was only 100 years ago, 110 years ago, um, people had modern things were coming out like telephones and automobiles and things like that, airplanes, but there was still one foot in the old ways of doing things. So I just thought that was interesting. I hope you do too. Now let's talk about the noteworthy structure in Somerset County. This was placed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1986. It's called Brentwood Farm. It was known as Adams Purchase also and Smith's Adventure, and it's located in Westover, which is where I lived. It's a two-story, three-bay Flemish bond brick house built about 1738, and it was enlarged by a well-designed shingle-style colonial revival addition in 1916, the era that I was just talking about. Now, the first owner, Reverend Alexander Adams, had a significant role in early Somerset County. He was born about 1680. Alexander Adams was ordained as a deacon and a priest by the Bishop of London and arrived at Somerset County as the new rector of Stepney Parish in 1704. From about 1707 to 1711, Adams served as presbyter of the Church of England for the entire county of Somerset, then including four parishes, Stepney, Somerset, Coventry, and All Hallows, which is now Snow Hill. Mr. Adams was rector of Stepney Parish for 65 years until his death in 1769. The land on which Brentwood Farm is situated was initially known as Smith's Adventure, patented to Samuel Smith in April of 1667. 5 years later, Samuel Smith conveyed half of Smith's Adventure to his daughter Sarah and his son-in-law William Brereton. Following this transfer, parts of Smith's Adventure were resurveyed under new names: Brereton's Chance, 1675, Mile End, 1680. William Brereton and his wife Sarah died between the years 1690 and 1698 and evidently passed to their son William the resurveyed lands. Beginning in the early 18th century, William Brereton and his wife Diana began selling part of their inherited lands to Alexander Adams, rector of Stepney Parish. The first transfer of a 165-acre tract occurred in March of 1718, with a subsequent transfer in the August of the same year. Also in 1718, Alexander Adams purchased from John and Hannah Waltham part of Smith's Adventure, granted to Waltham on August 10, 1698. During the following half century, Alexander Adams added to his holdings and eventually created a large estate along the Wacomico and Passerdike Creeks. Alexander Adams is credited with the construction of the house that's existing today in 1738. The exact date of construction was etched on the back of an attic stair riser, but the attic stair was rebuilt in the early 20th century. Although the etched date has not survived, the woodwork in the study is extremely similar to other second quarter of the 18th century designs. So before his death in 1769, Reverend Alexander Adams conveyed to his son Andrew Adams 168 parcel of Smith's Adventure and an 18-acre tract known as Adams Purchase. Andrew Adams' land holdings were recorded in 1783 and 1798. Now, this Andrew Adams lived on the property for another 19 years, bequeathed to his son, Andrew Adams Jr., and then Joseph Barclay got it and purchased it, and then he retained the ownership of the whole farm until 1854. And he sold it to Henry Potter, and then a suit in a lawsuit. So these things passed hands. In Samuel Costin's will, who also had the farm, he left it to his wife. Now, the farm remained tenanted under a man named Gosley's care until 1901, when George Wallace Jarman purchased the 280-acre property. Dr. Jarman was an obstetrician from New York City. He purchased the farm for use as a summer house in the hope that the Eastern Shore environment would benefit his two children who were victims of polio. Following the 1916 addition renovation, the property became Jarman's year-round residence. So this is a historic building, a home in Somerset County, and I certainly hope that you were interested in that and you would look into these people's lives, because the past is important. People are forgotten, and it's very interesting to see who they were, how they lived, what they thought, what they did. So thank you for watching this.